Hello. Welcome to Everything Fact. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button.
Today we are going to see Scariest Places in the World. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. During the American Civil War, the most deadly battle took place in 1863 near the small town of Gettysburg. It is said that when Union soldiers ran out of gunpowder and were about to surrender to the Confederates, a ghostly George Washington on a white stallion galloped across the battlefield, urging the Union troops to continue fighting, and thus turning the tide of the entire war. The ghost of George Washington continues to ride across the battlefield every summer, but has to share the spotlight with countless souls of the fallen soldiers who have never found peace after being slain in 1863. Ghostly apparitions, cries of the wounded and dying, and even complete ghost regiments charging at each other has been reported. Hermitage Castle, England. Sometime in the past inhabited by Lord Soulis, a practitioner of black magic and kidnapper of local children, whose assistant familiar Robin Redcap promised him that he would not be harmed by forged steel or ever be bound by rope. It did not help Lord Soulis as the people rebelled against him and boiled him in a brass cauldron. The Redcap is still said to guard a treasure in the vicinity of Hermitage, and the screams of Lord Soulis's victims can still be heard in the castle. Also, visitors claim to have been pushed by unseen assailants, and figures has been seen where noon is supposed to be. Glamis Castle, Scotland. Home of the Earls of Strathmore for over 600 years, the castle is still in use, but is also one of most haunted places in Britain. Haunted by several ghosts, among them the spirit of Janet Douglas, burned at the stake in 1537, a young black servant boy, a woman without her tongue, and Earl Bairdie, a cruel and wicked man who continuously gambles with the devil trying to win his soul back. Glamis Castle also houses a secret room that contained either the bodies of enemies starved to death, or the malformed first son of the 11th Earl. Sedlec Ossuary, Czech Republic. A small Roman chapel beneath the cemetery Church of All Saints. When Henry the Abbot in 1278 sprinkled a small amount of dirt from Golgotha on the cemetery, he made it the most desirable burial site throughout Central Europe. When a new church was built on the site around the year 1400, all the remains were exhumed and stacked in the chapel. In 1870, František Rint the woodcarver was employed to put the heaps of bone in order, and he decided to put his skills to use, creating 4 enormous bell-shaped mounds of bone, one in each corner of the chapel, an enormous chandelier of bone, garlands of skulls, piers, monstrances, and the coat of arms of his employer, the Schwarzenberger family, along with his own signature, all executed in bone and skulls, still to be witnessed today. LaLaurie Mansion, New Orleans, Louisiana. The LaLaurie Mansion is probably the scariest house in the otherwise most haunted city in the USA, New Orleans. Dr. and Madame LaLaurie lived in the mansion in the 19th century, but were extremely cruel to their slaves, and when firefighters had put out a terrible fire in the house, they discovered a horrible dungeon where slaves were being tortured. Since then, reports have surfaced of inhabitants being attacked by a naked black man in chains and children chased by whip-cracking phantoms, in addition to screams, groans and cries seemingly coming from nowhere. Catacombs, Paris, France. A Parisian cemetery was moved sometime many years ago, and all the human remains were deposited along the walls of chilly, dark passageways beneath the city. The catacombs are open to the public, but several stories of mysterious shadows, strange lights, and even graspings by unseen assailants can be heard everywhere. Bran Castle, Romania. Count Dracula's castle in Transylvania. Although it cannot be verified that the Dracula character of Bram Stoker's novel had his home in Bran Castle, there is evidence of Vlad Tepes, the historic figure on which Dracula is based, using Bran Castle for his raids into Transylvania. Vlad Tepes, also known as Vlad the Impaler, was a prince of Wallachia who fought against the Ottoman Empire during the 15th century. Vlad the Impaler earned his nickname because of his fondness for impaling his enemies through a series of different methods, which all secured a slow and agonizing death. Edinburgh Vaults, Scotland. A maze of cellars, workshops and residences dug out beneath the city of Edinburgh, but officially abandoned more than 200 years ago due to excessive moisture and an unwholesome atmosphere. The underground vaults were still used as shelter for the poor and the homeless, though, and outbreaks of plague and other diseases were not uncommon, along with the occasional murder. The underground vaults of Edinburgh are said to be haunted, and visitors have reported attacks by unseen assailants causing both bruises and cuts. The British TV show Most Haunted recently visited the underground vaults of Edinburgh, but no member of the crew would voluntarily return to the vaults after the shootings. Aokigahara Forest, Japan. This large forest at the base of Mount Fuji, with forest floor mainly of volcanic rock and home to many caverns, is reportedly haunted by both goblins, ghosts and stranger beasts, but it is Aokigahara Forest's history as the most popular place to commit suicide in Japan that gives the forest its place on this list. So many people kill themselves in Aokigahara Forest that local volunteers conduct annual body hunts to retrieve the remains of the dead. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Louisville, Kentucky. The sanatorium opened on a hill surrounded by peaceful woods on July 26, 1910, and was used to isolate and treat tuberculosis patients. It was renovated several times, and at its height accommodated more than 400 patients. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium functioned at Tuberculosis Treatment Center until 1961 and continued as a geriatric center until finally closed in 1980. Besides numerous accounts of paranormal activity, some of which have been confirmed by photos, the Waverly Hills Sanatorium also houses the body chute, a 500 feet long, completely dark tunnel with a strong echo used to discreetly transport the bodies of dead tuberculosis patients to the bottom of the hill.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button.